Oh my.
Set it to where you could hear me and I could hear you.
Yeah.
I didn't bother to do it on OBS. Now they should be able to hear us just fine.
Well, why don't you
Well,
do the intro?
yeah, 4 minutes in. Welcome to the Vomitorium, everyone. I'm a goober, and I forgot to reset my audio settings, so you couldn't even hear any of us talking the whole time. It was just silent, not even the background music, and I apologize for that. But as always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. We were talking about this really interesting ROM hack randomizer for like 4 minutes of being on stream, and you guys couldn't even hear a word of it. It's not like there's anyone
and we're
here.
not ever going to talk about it. We're never going to talk about it again. So don't ask.
So anyway, it's a pretty cool randomizer.
Super Metroid and A Link to the Past crossover randomizer.
Yeah. Or for short, they just call it SMZ3.
What is the 3 for?
It's Zelda 3.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
It's shorter than putting LOZLTTP.
Yeah. It says this randomizer mixes Super Metroid and A Link to the Past together into one experience. The goal is to kill both Ganon and Mother Brain.
Yep.
Travel between the two games can be done using certain doors and entrances.
Yeah,
that's bizarre.
I hear
so they actually...
the hard part is fighting Ridley. Because due to it being a randomizer, you can end up fighting things way before that you normally would in a game, just because you have certain things. If you get to the door that gets you closer to Ridley's lair from the Link to the Past side, you can end up fighting Ridley way earlier. And you kind of need a minimum amount of missiles to end up beating Ridley. And if you don't have them, it's rough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can just choose not to go in there.
You can.
Can't you?
Yeah.
They didn't randomize enemy placement.
No, they did not. It's just you gotta really be paying attention to what you're doing. It's like, do I have enough missiles to fight him right now?
Yeah.
And some people don't need as many as others, because some people are really good shots and with their timing, and some people just end up missing missiles.
Mm.
So you got to know your limits.
Yeah, you need those super missiles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would be interesting to open up a chest in Hyrule, and it's a missile upgrade or a power bomb or something.
Yeah. I was seeing that a lot, because like as I was saying, I was watching one of my friends play it. That's how I found out about it. And I was like opening up chests left and right, and it was just like, I'm like, why are there Metroid missiles over your head? And then I looked at the game they were playing, and I quickly Googled it, like, oh.
Well, so what does it look like in Metroid? Because usually there's just missiles like sitting there.
Yeah. It's just like there'll be a Zelda item, or depending on the seed, there might be like a red rupee or something there. You know, just
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it is just a missile. You don't know what's going to be there. It could be something from either game.
A heart container or something.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you get for the other game doesn't actually help you at all.
Yeah.
In the other game.
Which is why you're constantly going back and forth.
Yeah. I'll have to try it, because I definitely can. As we said, muted, I definitely can rip. You have to have the 2 ROMs. It's a perfectly legal thing. They don't provide you with the ROMs, so I could rip those from the SNES Mini, and it'll combine them, and then I can upload it back up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and both games are fun games. Like, they could have mixed a fun game with a horrible game, just because they communicated very well. But they're both really good games on their own, so I understand why they would want to mix them together.
Yeah. I wonder if the fact that they are both on the mini also factored in.
Maybe.
Because anyone who has that would have access to the ROMs.
Well, I think they're both like the two most critically acclaimed games for that system as well. Yeah. Like there's a lot of good games on the SNES, but if you were to think like what are the two most critically acclaimed games, it's probably A Link to the Past and Super Metroid.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? There must be like a Final Fantasy VI randomizer.
Oh, there is.
Can you imagine like opening a chest right at the beginning of the game and it's Atma weapon, yay!
Oh my god. A weapon that scales with you throughout the whole game. It's like, I'm just leaving you on lock or someone like that, and I'm never giving them anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it wouldn't actually be that helpful near the beginning of the game.
Yeah. Did you remember what the Atma weapon did when you picked it up?
No, as far as scaling with your character?
Yeah, because it scales off of your level and health. More of your health than anything, but off of your health. Yeah.
I had no idea, so it was helpful that you told me.
Yeah, it's a recurring weapon in Final Fantasy. The Ultima weapon is the actual name of it. I was just pointing out the Japanese word for Ultima is Arutema. So if you were to shorten that to fit on the screen, the A, the T, the M, and the A are all that show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Translators.
Yeah.
Come on.
Specifically, Ted Woolsey, as we've been over in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it doesn't tell you in game any of that. Like,
nope.
It shows it gives you like I forget what it was called, battle power or whatever, of 255.
But it doesn't. It actually does not give you a battle power 255. Yeah. It's like the strongest weapon in the game, and because of the way it actually scales, that has nothing to do with the battle power. It ignores optimize. So at no point will the game ever optimize that weapon onto a character. He's like, Woolsey is legendary and I shall defend him. He doesn't actually need defense, because there's a certain charm to some of the decisions that he's made. And some of them, because of that charm, they've kept it long term. But there are certain things he did that are just... yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with Woolsey.
I mean, he didn't translate Castlevania 2, did he?
No, he just worked with Square. So he did Final Fantasy VI, he did Secret of Mana, he did Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Don't you dare criticize me, Spoonie. Come on, Caster. He did give us a lot of like the best lines in Final Fantasy that were kept long term, just because of how memeable they were.
What is a Spoonie Bard anyway?
Well,
isn't that what that YouTuber, that guy Spoonie?
Yes, that's that. He got his name from that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna explain Spoonie Bard.
Well, it came from that one weapon that was like a knife.
No, that's not actually where the word Spoonie comes from.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, Spoonie's actually a really, really old word. Woolsey was really into old, like, medieval terminology and stuff like that, right? Like, I even told you about, God, I can't remember his name, but the frog from the past in Chrono Trigger speaks with, like, a British accent for no reason whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's not even, like, a consistent reason. Because when you go to his where he's from, nobody else speaks in that like intonation or mannerism or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Spoonie kind of meant mischievous, not trustworthy. Somebody's Spoonie.
Mm-hmm.
You might call like a gypsy Spoonie. Yeah, or like a hustler might be Spoonie. Which you'd also expect from a bard, because a bard might be going from town to town, playing his music. That's how he makes his living, getting into the pants of women and stuff like that, always getting into trouble. There's a reason why bards have a very specific, I guess, image or visage to them that people have. Like, if you were to play D&D, everybody kind of just assumes how a bard should be played. And a lot of it is because of just the long-term imagery of how musicians are. Like, do you trust traveling musicians? Like somebody who just has like a guitar on their back and they go from town to town? Is that somebody you would inherently trust?
Yeah. Probably not.
My cousin was one of those. Which, because she was, that makes me trust people like that even less.
I don't know. Did you ever watch Gilmore Girls?
Yes.
There was like a town minstrel or whatever, right? That would just sing songs in the town square. That guy was great.
Yeah, they're actually some of the best characters, though, right? Like in The Witcher. I can't remember his name, but the bard friend of his is one of the best characters. Yeah, bards, paladins, and rogues all suffer from the stereotype syndrome. Actually, more than just them. Every class suffers from stereotype syndrome. Some of them you can feel a little more free to play in different ways without people judging you, but like people expect clerics to act a certain way, people expect druids to act a certain way, so on and so forth. I think Monk is probably the class that people don't have the most judgment of because you think of like 5 or 6 different types of monks. Because it's both, could either be the religious monk or like the martial artist or you know, it's a more flexible class. It's covering a lot of area.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks barbarians are stupid.
Yeah, did you ever read Dragonlance?
No, I did not.
Oh, you didn't? There was two characters really, that were, I would say, well, the one character would be considered like a barbarian class, and his companion, which is a woman who is a cleric.
Yeah.
But they were both sort of friends from the same sort of clan, but neither of them were dumb. Neither of them were what you might consider like cavemen or anything.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of weird. I think one of the reasons people have such a... well, there's 2 reasons, right? One, history. There's a lot of slander for the word barbarian, which comes from the Pirates of Barbary, right? The word barbarian comes from Barbary. Which the Barbary pirates were not dumb at all. But when you have enemies with people, you make them out to be worse than they are, right? Same with like the Scandinavian Vikings. Vikings have this stereotype of being dumb because, well, people didn't like them. But they were very intelligent raiders. Like they knew how to infiltrate almost anything. It was really hard for you to wall them out, right? And the thing about barbarians, though, one of the main modern stereotypes of why they're dumb is from Conan. And not because if you go back to, like, the Barbary Coast was named after barbarians, not the other way around. I believe that. I don't know too much about the history of barbarians. I do know the history of slander against barbarians, but not so much like the root of it. But part of it's also Conan. And not because Conan was dumb. Yeah. Conan was actually fairly intelligent in the stories. It was the representation of Conan done by Arnold Schwarzenegger that started making people think barbarians were dumb.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you wear a loincloth and just people make assumptions. I did have something I wanted to get off my chest, but I don't know where it fits in. So, I mean, I guess I could just say it. Have you seen the movie Tenet?
No, you keep asking me this, and I have not seen it. I might eventually, but it's not on my list to watch anytime soon.
I watched it the other day, and I wouldn't bother. I mean, maybe if you feel, if you're bored one day. But I have to say, that movie sucked. It absolutely sucked. I feel like there was a lot of hype for it last year, and I think a lot of people watched it and were very confused by it. I could understand it being confusing, but to me, it was just unbelievably dumb.
Okay. Well, so Dr. Kane says that barbarian came from medieval Latin, barbariness. Which I believe.
Yeah. Yes, Tenet is that movie where Christopher Nolan is saying, "I'm very smart." Yeah, he's not.
No.
It's what's funny is, just the main gist of the movie is about time travel
Yeah.
and being able to reverse time on individual objects or people so that they're going backwards in time, but they can still interact with things going forwards in time. The problem is, well, I think they made it very confusing for the audience, but frankly, I think it was too confusing and too complicated for the writers.
Yeah.
I think that they were unable. I'm guessing it's not that they didn't try, but I think they were unable to grasp their own concept because the implementation of it made absolutely no sense. And in fact, in the beginning, what's funny is in the beginning there is a character that's talking to the protagonist and says essentially, actually to the audience, "Don't think too hard about this." Mm-hmm. Basically. Because none of it makes any sense.
Well, how do they do the time travel? Do they just travel back or do they rewind time?
The way it works is there's a big machine,
mm-hmm. and
you go into the machine and it moves you a little bit, and then suddenly you're going backwards in time.
Okay.
So your atoms get reversed somehow. So
okay,
basically,
so you temporarily become antimatter because antimatter is matter going in the opposite flow. Yeah. And then you become matter again when you're done time traveling.
Yeah, and they do mention basically that if you touch yourself going forward in time, you might annihilate or something like that.
Which would happen because if antimatter touches matter, they cancel each other out.
Although these whatever they are, antimatter.
But they touch other actual matter, which that would. Everything's made of carbon for the most part. Most of your body is made of carbon. Yeah. If you touched anything, you would probably annihilate yourself.
Yeah, but anyway, so the way they implemented it. So here's an example, and I don't know if I should even get into like people, because that gets really complicated. But let's say. So there's this thing where they put bullets in the machine, and they become backwards bullets.
Okay.
So basically,
like an antimatter bullet.
Yeah. So basically, you put a bullet on a table, you put your hand like this, and it goes up into your hand.
Okay.
Like you dropped it, but backwards. Which I don't know how that works. I don't know if your mind makes it do that. And also, if a bullet has been shot into like a wall, you can pick up an anti-gun and somehow the bullet come out of the wall and go back into the gun.
Yeah.
But here's where so that I believe it or not, I could suspend my disbelief and say, okay, I'll buy.
At least they're having fun, right?
Yeah. But here's where it breaks down. So they have a scene where there's a wall. Like they've cut it out of a building and they've got it in like this test lab, and it's got all these bullet holes in it, right? With actual bullets, like backwards bullets in there, I don't know what you call them, reverse bullets. The guy picks up the gun, does something, and the bullet comes out of the wall and goes back into the gun. And when it does that, the bullet hole goes, and suddenly there's no bullet hole, right? Here's the problem.
Where's the mass for that hole? Yeah. Well, also, where's the mass for that hole? Like, did the fragments come back off the ground or whatever? Or
yeah, presumably. I mean that's not what bothered me. What bothered me was the wall isn't reversed. Yeah. So regardless of if the bullet comes out of it, why would the bullet hole close up?
Yeah, because the wall's still going forward in time, right?
Yeah, the little rocks and pieces that broke off, why are those going back in time? That makes no sense.
I don't know.
And I'm like, okay, the people who made this movie they just wanted cool special effects.
How many antimatter bullets do you need?
Yeah, really. Well, I guess it was not even that cool because it's like, okay, they took a pic, they did high speed video
Yeah.
of shooting a bullet into a wall, and then they just reverse the video.
Yeah.
So it makes for a cool special effect, but if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, it's like that makes no sense whatsoever. Plus, it's inconsistent because they say at one point, basically, if a reverse bullet goes through you, as it's coming back into the gun, it like does an especially large amount of damage to you. It can really hurt you.
But why would it? You weren't in its path originally before it was reversed.
Exactly. Plus, why would it undo damage to a wall but do damage to a body? It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense.
What would be funny is if the bullet came backwards through you, right? But instead of it following the trajectory of the bullet, everything bursted out in the other direction as if it went through you the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what should happen, I think.
Yeah. That would actually be a great visual effect. You see it going one way, but the damage comes back out the other.
Yeah. It made no sense. And then you get into basically people going through this machine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool effect because they have this one scene where there's like a glass wall between normal world and reverse land, so you can see what's happening. And as you're walking into the machine, your backwards counterpart is walking backwards into the machine. So as you're going forward in time, they're going backwards in time. So you both go into the machine, and then you walk out the other side, and suddenly you're backwards and walking forward. And
well, because you'd be meeting like an equilibrium point.
Yeah. But once you're on the other side, it looks like you're walking forwards, and your counterpart is walking out of the machine backward.
Yeah.
Because now you're seeing everything in reverse.
Yeah, it's like coming up to a mirror, basically, right? Like you are meeting the point. A mirror is where light is bouncing back equally to you. So this would be the point where time is bouncing back equally to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost have to if you get confused. I mean, I don't recommend the movie; it's dumb. But if you get confused, it's like you have to draw a picture where you've got a timeline where time is going forward, and if you're moving forward a long time in the normal way, and then you enter this machine, and then you come back out, now you're moving backwards in time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so as you move along here, you see yourself, as you're moving this way, you see yourself moving this way because you're both moving this way. But then once you go that way, you then see you and your counterpart are moving back that way. It's bizarre. It's confusing.
That, and it ignores special relativity.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they probably even understand what special relativity is.
They didn't.
Yeah.
And the third thing that bugged me about the movie was it was unbelievably predictable. It was like there was a part where there's a guy and he's in full gear. Like apparently, if you're reversed, you can't breathe normal air, so you have to put on a respirator, and with reversed air and stuff. So you're covered in head to toe when you're in normal world, but you're going backwards. And there's a part where someone shows up in full gear. I don't want to ruin it, but it's supposed to be like a mystery who this person is, but it's so obvious. At least to me, I was like, I know who that is. Yeah, it's obvious. So it was just very predictable.
Yeah. Well, like the big problem is something like that has to be predictable unless the timeline of the movie ends up outpacing earlier than the start of the movie. Because otherwise, all the information you need will already be explained to you before it gets there.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
The end of the movie takes place before the beginning.
Yeah, it would have to, right? Like,
if
it took place at the beginning, how could you even make an interesting movie at all?
Yeah. Because the protagonist ends up going back in time to before the movie began and doing stuff in the past. And it's like, and then there's this other final big reveal of like who the mastermind is behind all of this crazy shit going. Yeah, it's just a dumb movie. It was what's bad. What was worse about it was like it's like a dumb person who thinks they're smart. You know,
Yeah.
There's a movie that thought it was smart. It's a clever premise, but just done poorly, I thought, and just intentionally confusing, or trying to be. But anyway, that's my rant about Tenet.
Well,
just wanted to get that off my chest.
somehow that gave me both more and less desire to see it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't really know anything about it, but I'd heard a lot of hype. So
I saw Nolan's name attached to it, and that made me like, it can sit on the back burner. Because I'm trying to think, is there a movie I actually liked that Nolan made?
I like Batman Begins.
Batman Begins was the most tolerable of his whole like Dark Knight trilogy, but I didn't really care for any of his Batman movies. And especially like Batman Begins at least has an interesting story to it.
Yeah.
But then I get pissed off. It's like, you could have made it any character but Ra's al Ghul. Why did you have to waste Ra's al Ghul on this and not actually make him Ra's al Ghul?
Yeah. Well, it would have been, yeah, like, why did they have to kill him? It just, yeah.
Well, they could have killed him. And if they weren't such a stickler about, keeping this super realistic and keeping magic out of it, could have brought him back using the Lazarus Pit.
Yeah.
Then I would have been less upset.
Yeah, Dr. Kane is exactly right. Clever premise, done poorly, intentionally confusing is the wordiest way to say Nolan I ever heard.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Joshua Hughes, your younger brother, is wrong. The movie was so freaking dumb.
Yeah.
It was so dumb. But it is one of those things where it's like, we're really, really trying to be smart. And if you don't understand this, and you're not smart and all this stuff. But if you actually think about it, it's like, this is so fucking dumb.
Yeah, what other movies has he made other than that?
It makes no sense. And I mean, not just makes no sense because it's confusing, but makes no sense if you actually think through some of these things to their, Yeah. But, and what gives it away is the character right at the beginning of the movie that basically is like, don't think too hard about this.
Yeah, I didn't dislike Inception. I think it's an overrated movie, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
That was actually a much more intelligently written movie, probably, than Tenet was. But that's because that movie didn't need to be that deep, really. Like, the premise of going deeper and deeper into dreams, pretty easy to follow. I think everybody's been at least one layer deep in a dream before, because almost everybody's had at least a single false awakening.
Yeah, I liked Inception.
Yeah. Interstellar, I thought that was a load of trash. Great acting. I like the people in it, but as a movie, Interstellar just wasn't a good movie.
See, I only saw it once, like when it first came out, so I really don't remember anything about it. I just remember a guy
was
was
pretty
stuck
good, but it was also predictable.
What was?
The Prestige.
Oh, I love The Prestige.
Yeah,
actually.
like as a movie, it was very well executed, but it was also very predictable.
Sure, I guess.
Yeah. But that's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like Nolan's trying to make these like, he's not trying to be what's his name, M. Night Shyamalan. Like he's not like, oh, what the twist, but he's trying to make like these mind-bending movies for the most part, like something that's cerebral. But The Prestige really wasn't that cerebral. Great effects. I loved the execution of the movie and ultimately how grounded it was, but it's not nearly as cerebral as it was marketed as. And I think that's what you could say about almost all of Nolan's movies. They're not as cerebral as they're marketed as.
Yeah, I mean, Prestige I found to be more of a I mean, I didn't find the twist or the reveal or the prestige, if you will,
Yeah.
to be particularly interesting. So much as
How they
I
got
guess
there.
I don't know, well, the character study and the fascinating, the obsessions of the characters. I thought it was an interesting movie. Like this one guy is just absolutely obsessed with the other guy. And then I think the first time I saw it, I don't know that I picked up on the other guy, his sort of multiple personalities.
Yeah.
I don't think I picked up on that until after it was revealed why he has multiple personalities. And then afterwards, it was kind of one of those movies where I wanted to watch it again. And the second time I watched it, it was like, oh, I see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I found it entertaining.
So, I can say there was at least 2 Nolan movies I enjoyed, counting The Prestige and Inception. But I think that's about it. I don't know. That's why I haven't watched Tenet. It's like, it's Nolan.
I think I'm the only one who liked all 3 of those Batman movies, frankly.
Really? You liked all? No, I'm sure there's lots of people who liked all 3. They were critically acclaimed movies. I thought they were overrated trash, though, for the most part.
Well, I thought Christian Bale was good.
I liked him. I didn't like what they did to his voice in post-processing.
Oh, yeah.
Because he even said too that's not how he did the Batman voice. Like he was imitating more of like how Michael Keaton did the voice, and then they added more distortion and stuff on it.
Where are the other drugs going?
Where are you?
What was it about that? Oh, here's one thing, interesting thing. What's his name? Pattinson, Robert Pattinson was in Tenet.
He's playing. He was in Tenet. Okay, because he's playing Batman.
Yeah, he was good in Tenet, and frankly, after watching him in Tenet, I think he's going to be a good Batman.
See, I actually did not think he'd make a bad Batman from the beginning, except for one thing. There's only one reason why I don't think he'll be a good Batman, and it's not that he won't play the role well that's being written for him. I think he's a good actor. I think almost everybody that was in the Twilight movies are a better actor than they've been given credit for. They were just in really shitty movies. Freaking, what's his name? Taylor Lautner. I think is a hilarious actor. I've loved him in the Adam Sandler movies that he showed up in since. But the problem is he refused to work out for the role.
Oh.
And he specifically said, and I dislike that attitude for the most part from actors. Now, if he said, I was told I don't need to work out for the role, that would be different. Like, well, they're going for an early Bruce, so maybe they don't want him to be buff or whatever like that, right? That's fine. But the specific quote was that he refused to work out for the role.
Yeah. Which is weird because in Tenet, he seemed pretty buff. I mean, he was...
Yeah. I think he's already a fit guy, so I don't know if he needs to do any extra workout. It's just that attitude, right?
Yeah. It's funny because I always pictured him as kind of a dainty little guy because of Twilight. But in Tenet, he seems... I don't know how tall he is, but...
Oh, he's actually pretty big.
Yeah. He seemed pretty, big and tall. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, he would make a good, decent Batman. But based on just his presence, his screen presence in that movie.
Yeah. He's like 6'1". Oh, you think you heard that he changed his mind and he is going to work out? Because I remember he said originally he wasn't going to. Maybe he caved into the pressure. Because I know there was a lot of outrage on that.
Yeah. When that leaked or whatever. Yeah. Obviously, it says nothing about the writing. It could still be shit or whatever. But
yeah, I don't think it's going to be a good movie. That's my big problem. Like, I don't have any suspicion that he wouldn't be good as Batman. I mean, if you go back to magazines and newspapers and stuff like that for what was it, 89, when Michael Keaton was first playing Batman, And it's like, Mr. Mom as Batman? Like, everybody was giving him shade
Yeah.
and stuff like that back then. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad actor. My problem is almost never anything to do with the actors, too. It's the freaking production teams working on this shit.
Yeah. They need to bring back. They are bringing back Michael Keaton, right?
I heard.
Isn't he gonna play? Is it for a Batman Beyond movie or something else?
I don't know exactly. I think it was for Flashpoint, right? I think he actually might be playing Thomas Wayne. Because in one of the rewrites during Flashpoint, there's Thomas Wayne as Batman.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be interesting because he's supposed to be like an older Batman, where Bruce died. Interesting.
I'd be down for that. I would prefer him to play Bruce in Batman Begins. Actually, that's what I thought Robert should have been playing because physically he reminds me a lot more of Terry anyway. And I'd be like, that'd be good if he was like Terry and then Keaton came back as Bruce and we just had a Batman Begin movie. Sorry, Batman Beyond movie.
Batman Beyond.
Yeah. Batman Beyond Begins.
Yeah. It was for Flashpoint, if Flashpoint ever comes out. What I found interesting is, another side note, I mentioned that I've watched almost all, I haven't watched all of them, but almost all of the animated DC movies that are on HBO Max. What's interesting about those movies is the very first one they did in this series was Flashpoint. And all this crazy shit happens, and then he reverses it, and everything kind of apparently goes back to normal. But it's
as normal as he remembers it being. That's like the issue with Flashpoint.
Yeah. So then, like, all these other movies happen afterwards where really terrible shit happens. And then we find out in the most recent movie, like, the worst shit ever happens, and it's like, you know what? They figure out that it's all because of Flashpoint.
Yeah.
So he actually screwed things up. He didn't even realize it, but he actually screwed things up even worse the second time.
Yeah, if I recall, that's literally the entire premise of the New 52.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they
hit it pretty on the head, yeah. Because that's when that started too. Like the DC animated universe, which isn't all one connected universe. There's some things that aren't directly connected to each other. But the main line, it started just about shortly after New 52 started in like the late aughts, and then it's been taking a long time. You know, we've had Rebirth and stuff like that in the comics since then, but it's been following a lot of the same stories, but also just a bunch of unique things that are not necessarily in the comics here and there.
Yeah, it's such a shame because these movies, just going through them, they did such a great job. They did as good or better than the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah.
As far as fleshing out the DC Cinematic Universe just in animated form.
Honestly, I think I like Justice League War more than I like any MCU movie.
Yeah, it's great. If they had just taken these animated movies, I mean, if they really wanted to do a live action, it's like, these are perfect.
Just take the script for War. That could have been your starting movie right there.
Exactly. What, like, who the hell is working on these animated movies so brilliantly and not working on the live action ones?
Well, here's my thing with War, right? And I think I've said this before. And I think this is why War works and why they should have done this as a live action. Marvel has a lot of characters that need to be established. Certain characters you don't, right? Like, you don't need to establish Spider-Man. You actually didn't really need to establish Iron Man. You don't have to establish a Hulk. Some of these characters, people just know their background. They're ingrained in the culture. They're icons. DC has an even bigger jump on that because DC characters, they have more things that are culturally icons than Marvel did at the time, right? The vast majority of characters, you do not need to give their origin story or to establish them to an audience. Everybody knows them. Everyone knows Superman. Everyone knows Batman. Wonder Woman's known enough now. Even Aquaman, who doesn't show up in War, is known enough now. The Flash, everybody knows. They've been in TV shows. Green Lantern. The only people you really need to introduce is a Cyborg needed introduction, which War does take the time to introduce Cyborg as a character. His origin within that universe happens in that movie. And maybe you really don't have to introduce Shazam because there was that iconic Captain Marvel show way back in the day. But there's been some gap. This was before the Shazam movie. If you wanted to reintroduce him to audiences, you could have taken the time to do that. But most of the other characters, you really just don't have to introduce to an audience. You could just get started with an interesting story.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
It's like all these characters just kind of show up. It's like, oh, there's Shazam. Oh,
yeah,
there's
you
Green
know
Lantern.
them all.
Yeah, you know.
Martian Manhunter. You might need to do a little bit of establishment with Martian Manhunter. He's not as much an icon.
He hasn't really been in those movies.
You know, he hasn't. He should have been.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
as I said, if you wanted to bring him into the world, that's one of those characters you might need to do a little bit. He was one of the characters they took the most time fleshing out back in the Justice League of America and Justice League like Unlimited TV shows, because they knew it's like this is a character not as many people know about.
Yeah. There's another movie. Oh, I know what it was. There's an animated Mortal Kombat movie from last year.
It was way better than the Mortal Kombat movie, from what I've heard.
Exactly. The WB did. And what's fucking weird about it is that the premise is almost exactly the same, except they did it right. They did exactly what I suggested, because I didn't even realize this movie existed, and I'm like halfway through it. I just started watching it yesterday.
Well, the existence of this movie is also why I do have complaints about using Scorpion as a main character for a Mortal Kombat movie, because that was my problem with the movie.
Well, with the live-action movie or the animated one?
Closer to the animated.
What's your problem with it?
I didn't like the main plot.
Oh. Well, but it's exactly the same plot as the live-action one.
Well, thanks for telling me that, too, because that means I'm probably going to like the live-action one even less than I thought I was going to.
Well, except that they screwed it up. Instead of having Scorpion, like, come back from hell and be, like, the hero, they just made... They started to do that. Like, it seemed like they were going to do that. But then instead they made up this new fake character.
Yeah. Well, see, so this animated movie is exactly why when we were talking about the Mortal Kombat movie, I was pushing back on the idea of having Scorpion be the main character in the live action movie. Because while I liked the execution of the animation and the fights and everything going on in that animated movie, I really disliked the idea of them bringing back Scorpion from hell to be the hero of the movie.
Well, it's like if he went to hell, then why would he be why would he be the good guy?
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with that. Scorpion is a great character that's deserving of his own movie. But if you were making like, and that's even that movie was kind of sold as a Scorpion movie, less as like a generalized Mortal Kombat. It's like a fix on this character, but I just didn't like the plot. But Scorpion is a character that if you wanted to make a live-action movie with him, he would be great for it. But it should just be a really hardcore, I'm a bad guy on a revenge quest movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, Sub-Zero really fucked him over and he wants revenge on him.
Well, yeah. So you'd hate the live-action one because... well, maybe not. Maybe not, because they didn't end up making him the main character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I still hate the fact that they had, like, their... He's not really a Gary Stu from what I've seen, because he does have, like, his ass handed to him here and there, but he also does have literal plot armor.
But wait, who?
The main character in the live-action movie. Yeah. He has literal plot armor, yeah.
The armor like appears on his body.
Yeah. Which is a cool power, but the way it was handled, it's like, God, this is worse than how some shonen handle their protagonist's plot armor.
And here's the thing, they could have done it better, and I've already talked about this, is that they could have done it better by basically making him a resurrection of Scorpion.
Like an incarnation?
Yeah, so like he would still somehow maybe he gets the memories or something, and so he has the motivation for this revenge quest, but he's not evil. Like,
Yeah,
I guess
like maybe
Scorpion
like he's
was.
fighting it. Like there's a spirit inside him of his past that's taking over.
Yeah.
He'd be like a Soma Cruz character. I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
having an original character like that as much. I still would prefer if they didn't, but if you have to go that route, that's not a horrible way to do it.
And then he could basically become the new Scorpion.
Yeah.
I mean, at least then it's not like some new character that just is shoehorned in. And it's like...
It would be a better reason for trying to make Scorpion a good guy.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas in the animated one, it's just actually just Scorpion, and he comes back from hell.
Because Scorpion isn't inherently a bad guy either. He's kind of... I wouldn't call him neutral. He's a selfish agent. Right. Like,
well, I mean, in that animated movie, they made him totally the good guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean...
But I mean, like, historically, he's just a selfish agent. He's got his motivations, and he's doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I'm only halfway through that animated Mortal Kombat movie, but so far I like it better than the live action one.
Well, I mean, even from what little I've seen of the live action, I did watch some like scenes just to see how the fighting was, and I was not impressed by how they did the fighting in that movie.
There was hardly any fighting.
Yeah, it was like brawling. Like what little fighting there was, it was like sloppy brawling.
And it was very brief.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to fight for literally 30 seconds, like less than a minute.
And then you watch the animated movie and you're like, man, they must have had actual martial artists on here to help them, like, as they were drafting out the choreography for these animated scenes.
Yeah. I mean, one character, I'm pretty sure, was it not Melina, but there's a character that flies. She's got wings, and she looks all bizarre. Like her face looks gross. She has no, like, I feel like she could have been an interesting character.
And she
has no lines
right away.
She just dies.
Yeah,
it's like what? And, like they didn't even have her fight. Like, she's supposed to be fighting against this one guy. I don't think they even touch each other once. And it's just like, boom, she's dead. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That was bizarre. I honestly don't think she touched him, or they even touched each other.
Well, talking about animation that I'm not even sure if it can be good. Did you hear about the news of the new Batman animated series?
No.
Yeah, there's going to be a new Batman animated series. It seems like it's going to be a spiritual successor to the old Batman the Animated Series / The Adventures of Batman and Robin. But it's being produced by J.J. Abrams.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward. Like, it is still going to be under, like, a lot of the same studios. Like, WB is managing it and stuff. So maybe it's just his name to sell it, to get more people to watch it. Maybe he's not going to have direct oversight over anything. But just putting JJ's name on stuff, it makes me hesitant.
Wait, isn't there something else Abrams is doing? Like, what?
Abrams is doing all kinds. That's why I think he's just a producer.
He's doing the fucking Portal movie.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, actually.
So is he the director of the Portal movie?
Yeah, he's going to be directing that. I think he's just producing this animated show. But the problem is, people do have certain expectations from things that have Abrams' name on it. A certain, like, feel of, like, you could tell this is a J.J. Abrams movie or a J.J. Abrams show. And even if he's not actually directing the show or having any direct say in anything, you know that they're going to try to make the show to capture that feeling, because why else would you put his name on it? And that's the part that bothers me. He's
a producer on this show.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know what producers do.
They allocate money. Sometimes their own. Far more often than not, they find other people's money to put into a product. But a producer's entire goal is to get money for the project and to also make sure that the project is marketed well. That's what producers do.
Yeah.
That's also why producers, people are like, oh, the director has the final say. No. The producers have the final say unless they purposely picked a really top name stubborn director. Like Scorsese always has the final say in anything that he does because he's fucking Scorsese. But more often than not, the producers have the final say because they're the ones that have the fucking money. And they'll be like, hey, I'm paying your check. Do what I want. And that's also why the Avatar M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Last Airbender, was so awful. Not just because they put Shyamalan on there, but the producer kept interjecting shit like, oh, you got to put my daughter in the movie and stuff like that.
God, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? The girl that played Katara, like the main girl character in Last Airbender, was like the daughter of the producer of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was all kinds of problems with that. Honestly, that doesn't bother me, though, because I knew that movie was going to be shit before any of those problems started coming out, and I never had any desire for it, but people always complain of that movie all the time.
Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah. I mean, what has M. Night Shyamalan done that was actually good?
Sixth Sense?
Yeah, that's about it.
He used to make good movies back in like the 90s. And then he just he got pigeonholed into a trope, right? Because he also made Signs. I enjoy the movie Signs. I thought Signs was a pretty good movie. The Village ending was a little dumb, but I enjoyed the movie up until the end. But he got pigeonholed into this what a twist mentality. And he has to have a twist in like every single movie, but not every movie needs a twist, right? So he always writes the same type of movie, and he's getting worse at it over time. Unbreakable was a good movie. The Bruce Willis movie where he was unbreakable. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. But everything that came out of it was... Split was okay. It wasn't bad. I wouldn't call it like a good movie, but it wasn't bad. I enjoyed watching Split. It at least didn't feel like a waste of my time. Glass, on the other hand, felt like an utter waste of time.
It was infuriating.
Yeah.
It broke the what was it, Chekhov's gun rule, where it's like they're gonna have this big fight at the tower or whatever, and it's like, never mind.
Yeah.
It never happens. It's like, what? That's what we've been waiting for this whole movie. Come on.
Well, so I think the reason why Split was at least enjoyable is because it was an older script, right? He wrote it closer to the time that Unbreakable was made, right? So it was just being executed later. So it was an older script, which probably had good ideas, being executed by a director who's not as good as he used to be. Kind of averaged out. But then Glass was a new script, where he's not as good as writing, being directed by a guy who's not as good as directing as he used to be. I honestly just think Shyamalan's washed up. Like, I think that's the case. He made some good things back in the past, but he like peaked and then he just went downhill.
Yeah, it's weird. Seems like it.
Yeah.
You
What can you do? I think another problem is that there's not a lot of people making cinema anymore, right? And I kind of agree. I think it was Scorsese was the one who said this when he was saying that like the Marvel movies are more like theme park rides, but it's not just the MCU. It's most movies in general. And you've been seeing this trend since like way back, thrillers. I'm trying to think, what was the last thriller that was really cinema? Because a lot of the old ones used to be like back with Hitchcock and stuff like that. They were actually writing movies that took you on like a mental and emotional adventure, not just on like a ride through a theme park. But like maybe late 80s, early 90s, the thriller genre started to become more like theme park rides. Funny enough, Jurassic Park is probably it's a better movie, but it's one of those ones on that trend downhill where that movie is kind of like a theme park ride, funnily enough, in a theme park.
Right.
But like all movies on average started going in that trend, right? There's very few actual like real dense cinematic pieces of art. Which is why, like, I don't want to give Nolan too much crap, because it does seem like he's trying to do more of that than just making a ride for you to blow. He's trying to make you think about what you're watching. Whether he does a good job or not, but at least there's some attempt there. You could tell his movies are trying to be more of art. There's just not that many good filmmakers anymore. What have you got, like Quentin Tarantino is one of the few ones that tries to make cinema. There's not a lot.
You know, there's this whole trend that still seems to be going on of the whole, like, found footage, you know, Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Blair Witch, whatever.
And it's something that could be done well, but
was interesting at first, but yeah, overdone.
You know what makes it better is found footage should not be in cinema or film. It should be in, like, the ARG space, on the internet, stuff like that. That's where it works very well. So it's because everybody's in on it, like when you're doing like an alternate reality game. But you could do like really artistic and interesting, very like engaging stuff with it. And it's a completely different experience.
There's some basically ARGs in the form of like YouTube channels.
Yeah.
That are fun to,
like, what was one of them is a TV station. I can't remember the name of it, but it's great. Before we close out, I do want to plug this for people who weren't. What's the name of it? God, it's gonna bother me. I'll have to plug it next time when I actually find it.
Yeah, and when you bring that up, I'm gonna try and bring up there's a series of short films done by a very artistic guy. They're animated, but it was a guy who actually did an intro for The Simpsons that was extremely bizarre and esoteric, I guess you could say. But I'll try and figure out. Being vague, I can't even remember the name of it, but I was watching a thing about it. If you want to see some really interesting films by a new artist.
Yeah.
Can't think of it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it was. I have it in my YouTube subscription list too, but I just cannot, because it's the station name is the name of the ARG, so it's like letters and numbers.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, maybe for tomorrow we can do ARGs and creepypastas.
We can. That would be a very interesting show. Yeah. Either that, or I mean, we could save it for Saturday. We could build up because I feel like if we line up some things, we could talk about that for quite some time. That could fill a 3-hour show.
Probably.
Yeah. So let's save the ARGs. I'll mark that in your calendar, everybody. ARG Saturday. That's going to be the interesting Saturday show thing that we do. And we'll just do normal news and stuff like that as it comes up throughout the week. So, yeah. With that, thanks for watching the Vomitorium. If you enjoyed the show, share it with somebody else who might enjoy it. If you really like it, consider giving a donation at streamlabs.com/vomitorium live, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Have a good night.